And I have to say, archaeologists like to insult me by calling me a pseudoscientist. I can't think of anything more pseudoscientific than the Clovis First Doctrine, which locked American archaeology for 50 years in a particular framework, which we now know was totally wrong. Nothing good about it at all. A complete mistake. What I'm hoping the book will do in the long run is that it will lead to more attention being focused on the Americas. This is a very neglected area of the world as far as deep and ancient archaeology goes. The recent history of the Americas has been relatively well studied, but the deep and ancient history has not been well studied. And I think America is going to contain revelations for us about our story and about our past. And I'm serious when I suggest that America is the most plausible and the most likely home base for a lost civilization. If you're
going to read from this book, again, we've read from this book before in other videos. This book is Mysteries of Ancient South America by Harold T. Wilkins. And we go to chapter 5, page 117. And it says here, The Sign of the Sun, World's Oldest Alphabet. In chapter 3, I told the romantic story of the discovery by the young gunner Lieutenant P.H. Fawcett in the jungle of Ceylon in 1893 of a strange creeper-covered stone of ancient unknown date which bore hieroglyphics or letters of peculiar and bizarre form identical, so Mrs. Nina Fawcett tells me, with certain inscriptions found cut on a great slab over a vault. In one of them, unknown cities of Atlantean Brazil. The reader will remember that a copy of these strange letters was taken by the old Portuguese bandeirista in or about AD 1750. I have myself discovered some queer links between these strange letters of old Brazil and characters found in Tibet and Vedic Hindustan. One of the ancient letters is almost identical with a sign in Sansar, the ancient form of Sanskrit, which Hindu pagoda traditions said was derived by the ancestors of the Sanskrittian Hindus from the drowned land of Rutas, a land called Rutas, it says, which may be identical with the Atlantis of the Pacific Ocean, known as Lemuria or Mu. Right, so he gets to this part in page 119. He starts comparing some inscriptions and hieroglyphics, right, from Brazil, India, and Phoenician, right? So on page 119 of this book, it says, let my reader glance at the comparative table below. Now he shows Atlantean Brazil, they found this, Asoka, Old India, values foreign letter K, and Phoenician value Tau, or the Tau, the cross, the Tau, the Ta, Tau, right, one of the also the letters of the Hebrew, Paleo-Hebrew. So on the left is Brazilian, right, very similar, you see, to the Sanskrit. Ancient Egypt, well, this is Brazil right here. Brazil and Babylon identical. And Philistine, Phoenician, same thing. Early Greek, you see that? Alright, that's from Brazil, or so-called Atlantis, or so-called Lemuria. Atlantean Brazil, over here again, Nineveh, within the other side, Phoenician. Where do they really get their letters from? What are they really speaking? The mother tongue. Phoenician, it says, right? Look, very similar. Very ancient Punic or Pau-Ata, India, forms of a letter lame, ox goad. See that? This is from Tyre, Nineveh, Etruria, Moabite, and Sidon, Sicilia. Oh, you thought Moabite is just a biblical nation? No, they have stones and everything in Moabite writing, which is basically old Paleo-Hebrew, form of Phoenician Paleo-Hebrew, their own type. Alright, and now we got again over here with the triangle and the cross on top. That's from Brazil. Alright, then we got over here from Brazil again. Look at that, Phoenician and Carthaginian, the letter Aleph, just like the Hebrew Aleph, right? The first symbol, pictograph, and the alphabet, and the Moabite stone, almost like a W over here, see? Letter Shin. Tyre and Carthage. Early Greek, look at that. They just flipped it. Even more remarkable similarities and identities in respect of these ancient Atlantean Brazilian signs have been found in the islands of the sun and the moon, Titicaca and Coati. Titicaca in Bolivia and Lago de Titicaca of Peru. It was in this very lake that the last known living colony of bearded white men, so-called bearded white men, now he's trying to add the whole hijack, and women of old Atlantean post-cataclysmic Brazil was annihilated by bloodthirsty and savage Coyoans, whose descendants may be the Aymara Indians of modern Bolivia. It is exceedingly probable that the elements of culture and the syllabary of alphabet or hieroglyphics of the old white race of Atlantean Brazil survived for ages afterwards among the primitive races of later Brazil. The Atlantean civilization lasted for thousands of years, and evidence exists to suggest that Diodorus was right in the asserting that the ancient Egyptians derived their hieroglyphics from old Atlantis / America, right? We already got the Masonic book, Ancient Order, the Mystic Order, telling us that ancient Egypt was really America / Atlantis. And their hieroglyphics again derived from Atlantis, these Egyptians, and that the Phoenician seamen traders took their alphabet from the same civilization. And they brought what? This hieroglyphic, this Paleo-Hebrew, so-called Paleo-Hebrew, right? That's the reference. But we probably had other words for it, other names for it. But it doesn't matter. It's about the pictograph, the images, right? What was in stone and what was being put out as message, right? In picto form. This was brought over. It was called Paleo-Hebrew. It was called Phoenician. It became Hebrew, what we think of Hebrew today. But it's related to these, glyphs. A lot of them look like the Paleo-Ancient. Even before the Paleo-Hebrew, there's a picto, right? Even before that, there's a picto one. So these Phoenician seamen traders took their alphabet from the same civilization. But in a far later day, when decadence had overtaken the Atlanteans of old South America, the Atlanteans of what? Old South America, and the great catastrophe was near at hand. By the side of South America, one suspects the civilizations and cultures of the so-called old worlds of Asia and Europe may be mere parvenus and inheritors. Alright? They just may be inheritors. Nor one must repeat is the white race of old Atlantis. Dodge the hijack, he's adding his white race here as the Atlanteans as found in the old South America extinct today. He says they're extinct. No, they're still there. I'm going to show these other symbols here. It says here there's like a swastika denoting movement, creation, conception, rotation. This one over says denoting I, first before, Naira, Nairan. Look at this one right here. It says a very old woman, Apache, look at that. A very old woman, Coati and Titicaca. It says a very old man, stricken in years, God, Father. This is Akaki, Aki, and Aki. And this is what he's saying he found in Brazil, high Brazilian Atlantean character. You see how it's very similar. It says here signs that an end of a period. First two characters appear in high Brazilian Atlantean Dead City. Over here, Coati and Titicaca, Peru, signs similar to characters in African Tuareg. And the African Tuareg, right? So are they really coming out of America, these Tuareg people? Quite possibly. We got future videos and all this investigation. We're going to see, even if they did mix once they got over there with other peoples. It says earth, universe, earth, and heaven. Over here it says two gods, God Uru, Atlantean Brazilian. Then in the book it says it is likely that American and other prehistorians and archaeologists may be forced sooner or later to revise their ideas on the antiquity of civilization in North and South America. Okay? You're going to be forced. There's too much information out now. These discoveries of really revolutionary character are on the increase. They're on the increase. This is what has been going on, right? Especially in our journey here, in our community, how we've been learning so much. It's on the increase. It's just going to keep coming up more and more. For example, in the 1 year of 1940, there was found by American archaeologists a colossal head and stone of a man of a clearly, highly civilized race of unknown age or origin. It was carved with great art and sense of character in basalt and was found deep in the jungle at Tabasco, Mexico, which is 20 miles from the modern Mexican coast and more than 100 miles from the nearest source of this volcanic stone. It is obvious that a system of good roads must have linked what is now deep and almost impenetrable jungle and forests with the distinct quarries. Well, we know that to be true because they're finding that now in Guatemala and Mexico and all these places with their LiDAR technology. They're finding out that there's extensive highways and roads connecting all these ancient cities in the jungle. All right, continues, says the head, one of five, is of a man of white. He put his white again. You see, that's the only thing I don't like about this author. He's trying to throw the hijack. Everybody in America to him anciently was white. Civilized race, a masterful character, a sense of humor, judging by the expression, and clearly one of a master race. Oh, he said it. This ancient people, a master race. The features are as majestic as the heads of the pharaohs of Karnak and Thebes and the great Ramesses. The experts of the Smithsonian cannot tell what race sculpted these colossal and majestic features. I may note, however, he says, that Tabasco is the place to which the Atlantean civilizers, the humane Quetzalcoatl, alright, Quetzalcoatl, the Atlantean Quetzalcoatl, man in black of peace and culture, brought the torch of civilization from high Brazil, the great imperial colony of the motherland of Atlantis. They're saying Quetzalcoatl came out of Atlantis in or about 15,000 or 12,000 BC. Oh, way long time ago. Quetzalcoatl, man, not God, sent to Tabasco colonies from his capital Central American city of Toyan, or Cholulan. The other strange discovery is of a bull or Oya found also in 1940 by Dr. Uzdal, the paleontologist, in the mountains of southern California, in the top of a sandstone boulder which erosion has thrown on its side. The bowl bears round its rim the writing of a highly civilized race, for the signs are geometric and phonetic. They were made with great care and not merely scratched on the surface. For how many thousands of years the bowl has lain in the hollow of this rock, none yet know, but a clue to the advanced civilization of this great unknown race of North Central America. I give in two signs, among others, carved on the bowl rim, with their probable signification. All right, and this is what he found. All right, he's saying in California. And number two is he's saying it's very similar ancient Brazilian sign on ceramics and funerary urns of Marajo Island, Lower Amazon. So he's saying it's kind of similar. All right, both probably equivalent in meaning to, and it says three, which is this one, ancient Egyptian symbols. You see, that's this from, they found this in the bowl in California, but backwards they found it in Brazil and back and also in Egypt. Ancient Egyptian symbol, the Tori or Teri. All right, and four is another symbol on Oya. On the Oya, this is another symbol they found on the clay. And compared with the ancient signs at Marabajo, Brazil, right? China, ancient Egypt, meaning river spanned by bridge. All right, so you see how similar it is. All these cultures have the same kind of symbols. Where's the true origin? Nor is the above the only amazing example of diffusion of culture in an incredibly ancient world of civilization, preceding even the dynastic Egypt of the priest of Tyre and Thebes and the ancient Egyptian temple archivists of Solon's day. All right, he's straight up letting you know, this author, that all this, straight up telling you that this precedes, this is before the dynastic Egypt. This is before all that, before the priests of Tyre and Thebes and ancient Egyptian temple archivists. All right, of Solon's day. Because remember, they got the story from the Egyptians talking about there was a place called Atlantis, right, across the water where their ancestors were from. Even Herodotus says the ancient Egyptians, right, of their ancestors coming from a distant western land. The same Amazon basin confronts us with identical signs and symbols stretching hands across a very ancient world of wise men, from China and old India to South and Central America of far pre-Columbian age. How old these symbols may be, none yet can say. They may take us back to the days of the Heliolithic culture of 15,000 years ago, before the onrushing waters of the outer Atlantic drowned the black, white, red civilizations of the ancient Mediterranean basin. They were found about 70 years ago in the large island of Marajo, at the mouth of the lower Amazon, which is separated from the port of Belém, North Brazil, by the Rio Pará. In this island there is inset a lake wherein a small island called Pacoval. Here have been found many highly artistic ceramics, idols, ornaments, funerary urns, buried in mound dwellings. Nothing is known about the long vanished race who made them. But one strange fact about the craftsmen emerges when one examines the relics. They depict an extraordinary variety of human faces, so that it seems as if this ancient and unknown people of the old Amazon basin had studied every race in the world. Every race in the world. Some of the figures of the vases and ceramics are strikingly similar in their characteristics to figures found in ancient Mexican monuments. But the amazing features of these ceramics of old Marajo, unknown race of unknown date, consist in the queer resemblances and exact identity of forms found here in old Brazil and in ancient Egypt, India, China, and Aztec or pre-Aztec Mexico. Pre-Aztec Mexico, right? Toltecs and all them. Olmecs, Mayas, all them. You see, so they found all this. It's so striking, the resemblances, right? No one can yet say what chronological relation they bear to the higher and vanished Sokoite or vanished Atlantean civilization of the dead cities of High Brazil, but it may be surmised that Marajo's ceramics and mounds belong to a much later age than the former incredibly ancient and vanished civilization. The reader will find these comparative symbols set out below of great interest if he or she is interested in ancient South America, probably the cradle of the world's earliest civilization. Probably, listen to what he's saying. If you're interested in ancient South America, then you're probably interested in the cradle of the world's earliest civilization. All right, we got these symbols right here. It says Brazil, Mexico, and China. Look at that. Look how it evolved. A house, or the verb to dwell. Right? Brazil, China, Egypt. Right here it says a battlement wall or defensive barrier found painted or engraved, means also a palisade on the bank or a stream. Right here we got, what is it, a leaf, Brazil, China, Egypt. This is the only vegetable sign found on Marajo ceramics in Egypt and China. The sign made a place covered in woods, also in Egypt, the syllable am. Alright, sun and sun. A river spanned by the bridge, got that already. This is the symbol for night, also suggests a form of lantern or pharos, means also division of day and night in ancient Chinese. This means govern or command in Egyptian is equivalent to the phonetic symbol fa or ph or pa in the Mexican is equivalent to petklal. Then we got here Brazil, Egypt, China, India. Look what looks like an umbrella, right? Umbrella, shelter, cover, calm, you see? Brazil, Egypt, China says. Same thing it says. Rock or mountain. Brazil, China. Character not met alone but in combination means pyramid or stela. Brazil, Egypt. Is equivalent to the phonetic symbol N, stands for goddess, Neith. The symbol of old Egypt's Uraeus, idea of cunning or wisdom, is also the symbol of Quetzalcoatl, the wise man in black from High Brazil, in black, the wise man in black, Quetzalcoatl, from High Brazil, who civilized the barbarians. He civilized who? The barbarians and savages of Central America, perhaps about 12,000 BC. Brazil, Mexico, China, Egypt, India, all right? Just evolved the different things. Sign which sometimes represents two arched eyebrows united to the nose is identical with the tau of the Greek alphabet and corresponds with the Egyptian cross, where it symbolizes omnipotence, grandeur, eternal life, and phallic symbolism. It means the act of coition between male and female. In the Aztecan dressing codex and number C Toronto manuscript, it has same meaning. It was also the sign borne by the ancient Egyptian goddess of fire and Sekhmet, so all that means the same, and even in the Mexican codices.
If you're going to propose a lost civilization, there are certain preconditions. You can't have it on a small island. There's got to be a large landmass with enormous resources and the ability for population to grow and for those resources to be mobilized. And what I suddenly realized, you asked earlier why I started to write this book at all, is what the new evidence is pointing to is that the Americas have been wrongly neglected. That here we have a giant continental landmass with extraordinary resources that has just been ruled out of the story of human civilization. But once we take account of the fact that there was a giant cataclysm over North America 12,800 years ago. And once we start looking, as I do in America before, at the incredible, deep, in-depth similarities between, for example, the religious system of ancient Egypt and the religious system of the Mississippi Valley, then you realize that you're into a global mystery here, and that the answer to that mystery may not at all be in the old world, and may very much be in the Americas. In the Americas.